Ladies and gentlemen, technology today is everywhere. It is almost everything we do and everything we own. It is in our well-being, in our health, in our food, in our social interactions, in our education, in our economy, in our individual, institutional, and national security, and in our fiscal transaction, just as examples. It is the world we live in today. Just like natural resources in the past, technology is both a resource and a defining factor in state and world economies. The development of technology has accelerated rapidly over the last few decades. Since the invention of the computer, we have been moving forward in leaps and bounds, moving past connectivity and into the Internet of Things. New markets have evolved, new currency has been created, and new norms have been established. Today, it is impossible to compete in the global market without technological capabilities based on scientific knowledge. For Israel, which I'm so proud to represent in this country and here this afternoon, this was the case from the very beginning of its modern day existence. To me, and forgive me for not being too modest on this subject, for me, there is no better example of the crucial role of science and technology in the economic development of a country, of a society, of an economy than my country, Israel. When Israel was established in 1948, faced with a plethora of challenges on every possible front, we were faced with the task of building a nation in a small strip of land, surrounded by enemies, and with little natural resources to speak of. Israel knew from its beginning it had to build a home for its people, and it had to be sustainable. The only resources at its disposal were the minds of its citizens and the determination to find solutions. Israel turned to its scientific community, already active in universities and scientific institutions, which predated the establishment of the nation in 1948, and gave them a challenge. To be exact, more than one challenge. The scientific community was tasked with finding ways to provide food for its citizens with very little water, very little resources, and it was tasked to developing the weapons it needed to keep them safe. From health to education, from security to food security. Those were the tasks of the newborn nation. In both cases, Israel managed far beyond anyone's expectations. The small, newly formed Israel Defense Forces were able to safeguard its citizens from the dangers around us, providing security for the state and allowing it to develop its sprouting economy. Less than a decade later, in 1958, Israel began an agricultural revolution which made sure every limited drop of water in Israel counted. Drip irrigation. More crop per drop, which is a code word heard of very much here in India, more crop per drop for a nation with limited water and no trade partners in the region was critical and game-changing. Suddenly, Israel was able to maintain an internal market of food for its citizens as the task of nation building continued. Later, a few years later, we have engaged in the endeavor of R&D with the result of desalination as an invention within our country, solar energy is another example, and more to come in the field of development. Israel has long since overcome its initial challenges. Not all of them, but many of them. We live in a relative state of calm with our neighbors, and our agricultural produce is sufficient not only for Israel's population, but it is also exported. From a country with very small amount of rain, from a country suffering from water scarcity, we have become a country with water surplus. The one thing that has not changed in our country is how we dealt with our challenges. To this day, Israel relies heavily on its scientific and technological capabilities, both understanding and valuing its significance in adapting to the world around us. As such, today's Israel, invests heavily on applied sciences and technology on two fronts, educational and development. While research and development on a state level is important, it must rest on the foundations of a society with a thorough education in science and technology. Therefore, Israel has been investing in its young generations for decades, both in schools and after-school programs. In a partnership between all the institutions, governmental and public, including the Ministry of Science and Technology and the Ministry of Education, school curriculums have expanded to include not only math, physics, biology, but also biotechnology, robotics, IT communications, programming, and lately, cybersecurity too. In fact, Israel was among the first countries to pass a law in 1992 to grant access to computers in every school, a law being implemented ever since. The emphasis on education does not begin or end at the school level. Academic institutions in Israel receive substantial funds from the government to encourage research in all fields, including medicine, agriculture, and engineering. Though knowledge itself is a precious and priceless commodity, this research is not done for its own sake. Israel invests in research and development, looking for the application of newfound knowledge to our daily challenges. For this reason, R&D foundations were created in universities to help adapt scientific discoveries to industry, translating scientific knowledge into know-how. For this reason, transfer of technology companies were established in almost every university in Israel. In addition, the government of Israel appointed a chief scientist to promote research and development in every relevant ministry. There is hardly any government ministry in the state of Israel that does not enjoy the knowledge and the experience and the know-how of a chief scientist dedicated to the matter. Along with technological accelerators and incubators and startup companies and initiatives, Israel created an ecosystem in which new ideas are constantly sought after and given a safe environment to grow. Government and public bodies are major source of funds that are supporting almost half of Israel's R&D activities, while major shares of these funds are for civilian and R&D and are dedicated to economic growth and economic development. All of this in the field of industrial and agriculture and the agricultural sectors. The ecosystem I've mentioned before is not only theoretical. In many cases, it is also a physical, actual, tangible ecosystem in the form of technological parks, and a very unique partnership between government, entrepreneurs, finance, the researchers, academia. Understanding that proximity, the proximity between all the stakeholders brings more stronger interaction, and those technological parks were set up in the vicinity of universities. This allowed the young minds being educated in the academic institutions to venture into the job market during their studies and created a greater synergy between industry, academia, in the research facilities. I would like to give you some examples of, for example, the Advanced Park, and those who have visited Israel, I'm sure, have seen the Advanced Park, technological park in Beersheba, a city in the middle of the desert in southern Israel, all in the radius of a few kilometers, and this is maybe the advantage of a country as small as Israel, when you can cross the country in a few hours from north to south, and in a few minutes from east to west. Just in a radius of a few kilometers, one can find the University of Ben Gurion in the Negev, the IDF, Israel Defense Forces Technology Campus, the technological park housing both 250 international R&D centers with brands such as Dell, NES, PayPal, Google, Intel, and Israel industries such as IAI, Elbit, Mellanox, and more, with room for more budding startups in the high-tech industry who can benefit from the presence of joint venture capital from cyber labs and work incubator spaces. Each is enriched by the other in a win-win situation. Such parks have become a common practice in cities like Haifa or Tel Aviv, Herzliya or Jerusalem, besides Beersheba that I have just mentioned. And despite of that, every and each one of them is unique in its focus. While Ben Gurion University's singular cyber studies program has attracted other cyber-related industries to the park besides it, benefiting from the students' knowledge and the university's research in the field. As many of you know, cyber is quickly becoming a staple in the Israeli economy, with quite a lot of influence on the world cyber industry. And the example of Beersheba is certainly contributing to this rise of this industry. But the real secret of Israel's economic development and success, and this is the direct link between science, technology, industry, and economy, is not relying on scientific knowledge alone. Science and technology are the ingredients, but the determining factor is the skill to use them. Our economic success, largely based on startup endeavors, is the result of a wonderful medley of character and experience, what I would call the Israeli way. Going back to education, Israel students are taught at a very young age to question everything, even their teachers. They are taught to look behind the box, thus finding out of the box solutions. We will never accept something which would be defined as impossible. Our students, and when we grow older, even the adults, assume that there isn't something that cannot be possible. Many call this attitude chutzpah, if you know the word, roughly translated. I'm not sure there is even a translation to the word chutzpah, and I hope you all know what it means and how it is. On closer inspection, one might term it as determination and willingness to try, and often, sometimes, fail, without fear. This important character trait is an inherent part of our success. We take risk, we argue, we are very curious, sometimes loud, and we know we might fail. And when the government encourages companies through financial aid and other kind of encouragements, It knows it is taking a risk. This is part of the ecosystem. This important character trait is definitely an inherent part of the success, and it is not unfamiliar to Indian ears. A few weeks ago, India commemorated Swami Vivekananda, whose famous quote sounds very familiar to Israelis. Take risks in your life. If you win, you can lead. If you lose, you can guide. This perfectly sums up the attitude of Israeli entrepreneurs. Those who succeed with big exits do not go into retirement. They go back to the drawing board, they go back into the startup scene, and together join hands with more startups, leading them to success. The higher percent of entrepreneurs who fail with their first, maybe second, and sometimes third attempts learn from their mistakes and from each other, guiding one another to eventual success. All these contributors, investment in education, investment in academia, investment in research and development, and the Israeli character are the driving force behind Israel's economic development. While we have aimed at a sustainable economy of our own, we also know that in today's world it is impossible to survive without international economic cooperation. India, ladies and gentlemen, is quickly becoming one of Israel's most important partners, with our economic cooperation full of opportunity. We have been known for our defense relationship, very much based on R&D, joint R&D, but we go way beyond that. And this is our aim as we celebrate this year. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, we launched, not officially yet, but we launched on the calendar the beginning of the 25th year of diplomatic relations between our both countries, a wonderful journey of partnership, of growing partnership between India and Israel. As we celebrate these 25 years, we also celebrate the partnership, which is not only based on shared values, shared interests, and shared challenges, it is also based on our differences. Our differences that make this partnership so unique and special. India and Israel's economy are so different as they are in size and in focus. They will never compete with each other, but they can and do complete one another. India's industrial capabilities on a scale which is imaginable, and imaginable for Israel, but not only for Israel, paired with Israel's constant creation of new technology designed for a global market, are what makes the Indo-Israeli cooperation a true partnership. Each country is able to bring to the table its own strengths, and together we can reach greater heights, and this is what we are doing. Our partnership is made stronger as we implement the lessons we have learned by investing in mutual research and development, seeking to overcome shared challenges together with shared solutions. One step at a time, we are building more ties between our peoples, our economies, and our governments. From agricultural projects to joint manufacturing in defense, to ventures such as cleaning the Yamuna, as the media has shared with us in the last 24 hours, an Israeli company joining with the Delhi government to help clean a segment of the Yamuna, and other examples of more and more partnerships. We rely together on good ideas, on innovation, on large scientific bases, R&D, good technology, and in this respect, Israel is becoming India's technological partner, much beyond the well-known, talked about defense relationship, which is thriving and will continue to thrive also. But what we are looking for together is way beyond this. And based on the role technology has played in Israel's economy, in all its facets, it is safe to say that both our economies, as well as our peoples, will continue to enjoy the fruit of our cooperation. I thank you very much.